And we are live. Hello, everyone. Welcome to day 3 of Energy Transformation Week. I'm Tara Taglienti, and I am going to be interviewing Lauren Polly today. She is the author, the best-selling author of a book called The Other Side of Bipolar. She's also a life coach, and she's also an access consciousness facilitator, as well as you have a lot of other titles too. I'm just going to go ahead and I'm really excited to be interviewing you today because of so many things, and we'll get into that. But just to start off, hi, Lauren, who are you? And what is your thing here on the planet that you do?
Oh my goodness, that's a loaded question, isn't it?
I just started off pretty strong, you know?
It's kind of fascinating because I think most of us, we get asked that question and we immediately go blank, like, oh geez, what is like my purpose or the thing that I'm here for?
Yeah.
And there are these little breadcrumbs of clues that are sometimes bigger than not, based on your life experience. And for me, it's not just the professional certifications that I've been through. Like, I'm a speech pathologist. I've worked at the hospital for years. I'm a life coach. I'm the best-selling author of The Other Side of Bipolar. It's not just those big breadcrumbs. It's even the life experiences that we have that kind of drop little clues into not only what it is that we're struggling with, quote unquote, but actually like what we're here to change, or at least offer a different possibility to. And I'd say my biggest work with that is where things look like you're breaking down, you're falling apart, you're going through upset, that you're broken to your core, is actually the thing that you can inspire people to a different possibility. And that's what my book really dives into. And all of my work actually too. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's, your book is really extraordinary. Like I got it, and first of all, you wrote it, and like it's won all of these awards, and I mean it keeps winning awards. Like every time,
Yay, more!
your book is getting like this literary prize. It's getting I don't know. I mean, it's got so I'm like, I'm gonna read this book. I got the book. You know what? I didn't expect it to be, you're like taking us on this like journey with you, and it's written in like as a story. And I love the way that I think you're a genius, by the way. I just want to say that, like, it was genius the way that you like wrote it. Like, to me, I was like, wow, like you got your point across in such a beautiful way. It was like something that because here's the thing is like I've had a similar experience like 8 years ago with like the medical community, and having a nervous breakdown and having this strange diagnosis that I was just like, there's something way bigger going on here, guys. Like, hello, like there's something more. And I personally, my thing, I came across that like very shortly after that incident, when everyone around me was thinking that I was like crazy and they didn't know what to do. I found I got in touch with healers, like just coming into my life, um and then I saw a video out on YouTube of Shannon O'Hara talking about talk to the entities, and it changed my entire life. I was just like, oh. And now it's like, I just think that the way that you kind of juxtapose the medical community's viewpoints of what's going on there, and the way that and what was actually really happening and really going on, and what you were really aware of. I think that the way that you wrote that book was just so beautiful. It just got to me. It like, I was like, yes, somebody did it. you know um can you, I just, I don't want to, I know I'm like going right into the book, but it's just so profound. And I think that a lot of people are going to be, are benefiting from it. And I know it's creating a lot out there in the world, but I want to hear from you, right? what is your, this is about energy transformation. And so I know that that whole book is like your transformation story, right? But could you sum up, like, just for this interview, like, what is like your transformation story? Like, what was it like? I want to hear in your words, like, what was it like growing up? And like, at what point did you realize that you were different and that you were going to be on a different path in life?
Yeah, great question. I would say kind of like
Like, buy
like
the book, but I
buy the
just
book. It's 240 pages, so
yeah,
we'll condense it. I would say one of the feedbacks I got from a reader actually is she said, "Oh, your book is about becoming aware of your awareness," and I was like, "That's brilliant," and it so puts into perspective what my life journey is. And I think what all of our life paths are actually becoming aware that we are aware. And then from there going, okay, cool. So what am I aware of? And how do I use that? How do I have ease with it? And how does it become like a rocket pack of fuel behind me, not a tether that has to hold me down and make me feel broken? And for me, the early years, it was like because I was sensitive, the doctors called. There's a new medical thing they're throwing around now is oversensitivity, where basically you're like a little sponge, you suck everything up. You're feeling fine, you get around somebody else, all of a sudden there's a dark cloud over your head. All of a sudden you get a wave of anger going through. You have hysterical laughter. What the hell's going on? There's nothing really funny going on. You're aware of the energy.
yeah,
And fascinating because most of us will think, okay, cool, I'm aware of the energy of the person I'm interacting with. That's why I'm acting this way. That's why I'm angry or my mood's fluctuating. If you're very sensitive and super aware and open, that breadth of awareness isn't just person to person here
yeah,
or immediate family dynamics. You're actually aware on a much larger scale. And things that may not be seen to the eye as well. Entities, people who have passed on, energy dynamics, interracial dynamics. And for me, stuff was always so loud. It was louder than the actual surface stuff that I was interacting with people on.
yeah,
And that's kind of what took me down the crazy train. But also it's fascinating through this journey. It's like, it's not just, oh, it's going to make you crazy. Again, turn it into a fuel pack. How can you actually use it? But
yeah.
you got to become aware that you are aware first. I think that's
Mhm.
the key, you know?
Yeah, yeah. And for what I found is that for people who may not have who are for people who are living the definition of a diagnosis, right? Who may not have been exposed to, oh, energy, like I just I kind of it kind of was what kind of like got me a little bit motivated to begin doing some to learn as much as I could about energy and all these things.
Yeah.
I just wonder about, I know that I'm actually going to get ahead of myself in this interview. I'm going to ask you a few other questions, and I'll get down to how you would advise people. But I am
Mhm.
very curious. I'm going to ask you your, for some like advice and stuff like that. But so, okay, so now you, okay, so you actually went through clinical training and you as a speech pathologist, and you know what is it like to to what is it like to do a profession that's taught, without the energetics, to actually now knowing the energetics, and like how has that helped you, or how has that like added to your profession, and like what, like how has both sides of it um how has that been for you? Like I don't want to paint a picture of like the medical field as like this,
Yeah.
killer of the, you know,
Because it's not.
of the
Because it's
magic.
not.
Right.
Yeah.
Like I kind of want to, yeah.
Yeah.
How do you mesh the two now?
And this is actually something that I'm very unique on. Usually, what you'll
Yeah.
do is you'll find two schools of thought. You'll find a medical professional with that background who only does that. Or
Mhm.
you'll find someone who does the energy transformation, and it's like the medical system's all of a sudden the devil. oh my God, you are shooting yourself in the foot if you're in either of those camps. There is a beauty to this whole transformation process if you're willing to include everything and judge none of it.
Oh,
And that's actually the consciousness, that's the definition of it, that access consciousness, a set of tools that are amazing for being able to discover that you are aware and kind of what you're aware of. But I think people overlook that definition so often as we want to pick one thing and go with it. If you're willing to receive the information from both, not buy anything as hard, cold fact or that it has to apply to you, specifically as it applies to other people, there is this ability to create your own toolkit as it applies to you. Now, for me, I always come about it from the approach of that we're all super, super unique, but there is a wealth of information out there. If you're willing, again, to receive that and then apply it in a new and different way, that's beautiful. And for me, I started out through the medical system. Like you'll see that in the book, the diagnosis being in the medical system on heavy doses of medication. I never had the viewpoint or the target to get off meds. Never in my world. I was told you're going to be on medication the rest of your life. This is just how you go. I met a holistic psychiatrist when I was 20, and he really changed the path. And again, that work wasn't about getting off medication. It was about giving me wellness techniques, doing stress management, life skills, getting me on a path that actually kind of spoke to my strengths and not limitation-based therapy, which most of us are given. You know, everything's about the problem, or where you're going to be limited and how you have to deal with it, not about what are you good at and how do we take the focus there.
Yeah.
And that changed everything. I was able to wean off the majority of my medication working with him. But again, look at that energy. He did the medical, and he did all the other stuff. We did chakra stuff with each other. You know what I mean? We did meditation techniques. It was this beautiful marrying, and he really showed me what's possible in terms of taking everything. And then we applied it to me, my life, my body, and my skill set. And that's how I love to approach it, not just with the book, but also with my one-to-one work with people in my programs. It's don't exclude anything. If you are, you're missing out on so many possibilities.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's beautiful. I love the history that you give there about the medicines and stuff like that. I didn't even think to ask you about that, but I'm glad that I just,
most people, that's where they're going, is like if they're going to do an energy thing, then it's like no medication or no this. I'm like, that's not actually it. Some people may require that. That's okay. It's not a wrongness. You got to do what works for you. And at the end of the day, you're the one living your life. You're the one paying the bills. You're the one responsible for your actions. You got to do what's actually going to allow you to like have a life that you love and that you can thrive at. You're not responsible for taking anyone else's viewpoint or advice and living by their standard. And I find so many people out there going, this is the way to do it. That's so disempowering. You've got to really look at, for my life and where I am right now, what do I actually require to move forward?
Yeah. Awesome. Okay, so that actually brings me to actually ask you. So I kind of go through a list of like the similar questions with each person. It changes accordingly, but I want to know what's like. So here's the thing, right? Like what's your inspiration for doing what you do now? So like the reason I ask this is because you could have just gotten the information that you required and lived the rest of your life doing whatever you want to do, right? But like what has you like choose to like help other people and transform other people's lives? Like what's that inspiration in there?
What pops when you say that is when I was 14, that's when I was diagnosed. I remember very clearly sitting on the psychiatrist's sofa. I think maybe like session 5 or 6 after a diagnosis, medications had started, and kind of like the warning speech was given of what my life would be, which is you can't handle stress, so don't challenge yourself too much. Even with medical management, the shit may hit the fan and you may go crazy. You're basically going to be a drain on the people around you. And also like biologically passed on. So if you have children, you may give it to them. And for me, as a 14-year-old girl sitting on that sofa, my mind went immediately to, oh my God, who would ever choose to marry me?
Yeah.
I can never have kids. Like the whole life that a little 14-year-old girl would be dreaming about, a career and family, all of that just kind of caved in like that. My inspiration is really getting this information out there, not just to the people who are going through it, but also the medical professionals of how can you be dealing with the people who are on the other side of the sofa, so to speak, so that
Yeah.
you don't take a dream and crush it in an instant.
Right.
And for me, it's like no one else should have to go through what I went through with the weedy, windy journey and being mismanaged for so many years.
Mm-hmm.
There's a better path. And I'm hoping to shortcut that path, I would say, is kind of the bulk of the work that I'm doing. But I
Yeah.
really don't want a 14-year-old to have to go through what I did. That took a long time to get out of, you know?
Yeah. And
Yeah.
something that's beautiful. I agree. I mean, it's I can, because you actually take us on that journey in the book about like what that was like, and also, you did go on to have relationships, and the thing that it's so interesting because everything that they said that you couldn't do or you wouldn't do, you are so opposite of that. Like you were just like powerhouse, like changing this, changing that. You're magic, and I'm grateful. Like thank God thank God it was you that was just like
Mm-mm. Well, and it's funny. I was recently invited to be on a literary panel at a literary conference, and I was up there with like New York Times bestsellers, and like here I am with my award-winning book, but it's tinier than this big thing. But it
oh.
was all about illness and the impetus to write,
Hmm.
based on that, kind of like this conversation. And it was fascinating because they were looking at me like, you're so different because we're still struggling. And you're kind of like, not only are you through it, but you're leading other people through it.
Yeah.
That I was like, I think I just refused to lay down. Like every
Yeah.
time something was given, I refused just to lay down and accept it. I'm like, no, 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 no. And it wasn't even an outright, I got to fight it. It was just, I know there's more possible and I'm tenacious enough to move through. And I'm also willing to be kind enough to myself and take care of myself enough to give me the space to follow my own path on my own timeline to do it. Because I can see a lot of people who get this kind of information and they're like, I gotta fucking do it right now.
Yeah. Yeah.
And there's this pressure of time, and then you end up creating more stress and you end up in a stress cycle, which just adds fuel to the fire. There's actually something different about taking a beat. You're perfectly okay right now.
Mhm.
Even if you feel like you're not, just take a second and feel your feet and breathe.
Yeah. I'm doing
And
it
you
with
can
you.
breathe. Yeah, it's just this open space. It's like if there wasn't a timeline on transformation, if there wasn't a timeline on creation, even not a timeline on wellness,
Hmm.
what
Yeah.
can you just choose right now to get your feet underneath you? And again, that's including everything. It may be calling a doctor, setting up an appointment with a coach, a therapist, whatever, going to a yoga class, having your access bars run.
Hmm.
All of those things. Even like for me this morning, there was a lot of noise in my space when I woke up. I went for a beautiful walk. And it was just the dew in the trees and the way the light was hitting and the birds. There was just this space of openness and peace. That took 5 minutes.
Hmm. Hmm.
Changed
Yeah.
my day.
Yeah.
So it's a lot simpler than we make it if we take that pressure of time out of the equation, you know?
Yeah. So,
Yeah.
I want to ask you, so this is Energy Transformation Week. So can you tell me like a little bit about in your words about the energetics of all of this? Like what was your discovery? And I know this is in the book, guys, but we're gonna hear give us just a little bit, right? Of like, what was it like? How has energetics, what first, like, if you can give like a cool example of like of the energetics, and then like how moving forward is this applied, and like how did that just kind of change everything?
I'd say kind of the thing that pops with that, you know, I'm a medical speech pathologist, so most of my career has been in the field of communication. And this is, again, where I work in the medical field, but I bring in these energy tools all the time, just in different language, so that people who don't have a background can actually get it. What comes up a lot with this stuff is more social interaction and social communication, where you're talking to somebody and they're smiling at you and they're saying very pleasing things to you, but you know they don't like you. There's just this thing of like, wow, that person can't stand me.
Oh.
Wow. There's just this thing where you don't feel safe. You don't feel open. There's a guard that goes up. The little hairs stand up on the back of your neck sometimes. And it's such a mind boggle, because if you look just on the surface, if you look at their facial expressions, their body language, what they're saying verbally, everything should be perfectly fine. The only thing in that sense, really, that sixth sense that we have, which is really that energetic, that emotional body sense. And I think most people would think about it as picking up on people's emotions. Emotions is such a tiny way to describe it. Same thing with the word feelings. It's a tinier sliver. The actual bandwidth of energy is a lot bigger than that. So that's just kind of a challenge. Walk around today, and every time you interact with someone, be wondering, look at their face, hear their words, but also look at the undercurrents of energy underneath it.
Okay.
And that was always big for me. And the more you challenge yourself for that, you'll start to notice, like, I'm aware of energy all the time.
Yeah.
And I can choose to interact with people verbally, or I can choose to interact with them verbally and energetically. It's not one or the other. There's a harnessing skill with both.
Cool.
But that's kind of like an easy example, because we do it all the time.
And I know, and you teach people how to do all of this and how to, I mean, obviously you're an access consciousness facilitator, but you also have your own programs that you're developing. And I don't want to spill the beans, but like, will you talk about like kind of like what's next? Like what kind of things are you putting out there for people? I have something in my head that I know, because we know each other personally outside of this, but it's like, I'm going to ask you. I don't want to put it out there.
Well, there's, I would say there's kind of like two things that I'm developing based on kind of like where you are in your journey. All of them have to deal with self-care, learning how to take care of yourself in every moment by being aware. And aware energetically. Now, on the kind of more surface, mainstream level, I do public speaking engagements, corporations, hospitals. I've been talking a lot to nurses and medical professionals about becoming more aware, looking at those dynamics and the energy, like we just talked about, to help with stress management, that kind of thing. That's beautiful and just right on the surface.
It's like, that is so cutting edge. Like, I can't believe that we're here. We're at this time where now, you know, like, you're a pioneer. Like, we're at a time where you're speaking with medical professionals about getting to know the energetics. Like, how amazing. What would it be like if hospitals were teaming with people who spoke energy and medicine? Like, wow, I got goosebumps.
Well, and it's been fascinating too, because they hired me initially to do like a continuing education program for certified nursing assistants, because they got reports that they were burnt out. I started there, and then all of a sudden the case managers heard. So then they hired me for that department. My manager in the rehabilitation department heard. So now she's brought me in 3 times to talk to 3 different groups. The managers of the hospital heard, and they were having burnout. So that was more about leadership and actually how to like look at the energetics of your team. It's been amazing, and that's just starting to bud and just starting to grow. And then on the other side of that, so that's
I'm sorry, I laugh because the reason I laugh is because I picture this, you know, like, you didn't set out to, it wasn't like you had this intention, like, I'm going to write this book and I'm going to end up at this literary award conference on a panel with all these other people. Now you're on, like, it's just like you're on fire, and it's like I love the diversity of different places that you're going, and it's just it makes me laugh because it's like it wasn't like you set out to be like, I'm going to do this and it's going to end up this way. It's kind of like, I hate to, gosh, there's I don't want to equate your life and your work to, it's like one of those movies, you know, where the character is just doing their thing and then they end up in all these really cool situations. So I don't know. I really like, that's why that's why I laugh, because it's just like, it's just so cool.
There's really something to just like showing up and being willing to listen, and also not having a point of view about where you're going. When I was writing the book, I'm like, it's just a joy to write it because I created so much change in my own space and body and all my own like stigma and judgment that I still had underneath the surface. All of that I was able to work through as I wrote. And I was like, even if the book doesn't go anywhere, it's just been a pleasure for myself to sit with it. And then one thing after the other, you just kind of watch this ripple effect. And I still get a little frustrated sometimes where I'm like, why isn't it bigger? Or it's slow over here. But again, that's me putting my timeline on it. It's like, take that pressure away and let the beautiful thing be in the world. And just show up. And then I get a request to do this thing. I'm like, sure, I'll show up and do that. And then there's a request to do this thing. Again, the hospital thing, someone asked me to do it. They had read my book. They were interested. They said, hey, can you put together this thing? Now I have a whole program that I'm shopping around at hospitals, healthcare facilities, and corporations. And then a beautiful thing that
I know. Congratulations. I'm just so happy for you. Like, I just think it's so cool.
What can it lead to?
Yeah, I know. Exactly. Like that's the thing, is I can see like a way bigger picture. You know, I mean, this is just the beginning. And I'm saying it's a beginning, like it's just every step is like another beginning. And I'm not just saying like this is just the beginning for you, but it's like for this time that we're in right now, this is the beginning of all of this unfolding out here. I'm looking down at your little square. Look at the camera.
I know, that's what I was like. But I think it's a beautiful thing just to have in your awareness. If you are creating something that you just adore, and it's a change that you would like to see in the world for other people, absolutely get with those other people. But where can you actually connect on a bigger level where the information can trickle down and funnel? And if I can get in with leaders and corporate executives and people who work with other people, then it's like that all of a sudden creates more. There's this little trendly thing that starts to occur. And you know, just the program that you were speaking of, I kind of went.
you know what it is. Okay.
I know where you're going, honey. It's good. Really, and this is a beautiful new program I've developed called the Modern Mystic Healer.
You totally got. I know we're playing like psychic tests now. You know, I'm just kidding.
And that's like when I was talking about the two different veins, like the self-care thing on the corporate level and kind of more mainstream and using language that people can get there. Modern Mystic Healer is online programs, in-person workshops, and retreats that are really for people who are already in this conversation, who know there's something else possible, or who already kind of feel broken, but at the same time, they know they're not on some level. This program really came about when I was at a movie screening for something called Crazy Wise, which is a documentary. It's amazing. I talked to you about this before. I love it. You can go on, I think, crazywisefilm.com. It looks at how people in indigenous populations are treated with mental illness, which is they recognize the signs not as a breakdown, but a breakthrough.
Right.
In their culture, they're actually looked at of like, oh, you're going through struggle, but it's because you're going through a transformation to be a healer. To be a leader of the village, to be someone who actually empowers others and is looked at for their insight and their openness to actually hear more information. So the whole film looks at that and the juxtaposition of how we treat it here in the Western medical system, which is totally different.
Yeah. I don't mean to interrupt you, but I read it was like with my breakdown, I got an article about how a shaman would treat that incident. And I was like, wow, I would have much rather been put up on on like a a pedestal and honored as like the, you know, the leader of the medicine people, you know what I mean? Like,
Yeah. Very
rather
different.
than, yeah, rather
Locked
than
away.
medicated and
Mm.
told all kinds of debilitating things. It was just, yeah, what would it take for things to just keep getting more lighter in this area? And yeah, and
And
go
it's just
ahead.
interesting. It's
Yeah.
interesting too, because it's not, it's like they're looked at and they're recognized of eventually you will be the healer, but they're, in the meantime, while they're struggling, the whole community supports them. They gather around them and they're given time and space and mentoring to be able to go through. And I was sitting in the room with maybe like 30 psychologists, psychiatrists, different kind of healers who were looking at this. And for
Yeah.
me, no one had tools to be able to guide them through. They had this concept. They
Yeah.
had this thing where they knew it was possible, but they weren't quite sure how to bridge the gap. And I'm like, I know how to bridge the gap.
That's so awesome.
I know how to do that. That's what I did
Yeah.
with myself. That's what access consciousness is. That's what yoga is.
Yeah.
There's all these different ways that we can bring these different modalities into this conversation and actually support each other through
Mhm.
the process out the other end. That's what Modern Mystic Healer is all about, really looking at, are you actually broken? Do you have
Mhm.
body issues, health issues, mind issues, or are you transforming? Have
Yeah.
you reached maintenance and you just haven't gone through the whole way? So you kind of feel okay, but you're not yet satisfied or satiated. Well, there
Yeah.
may be more to keep going into. So that's, if you can go to modernmystichealer.com to catch all the information on that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
awesome. And then that was going to lead me. By the way, I just do before I'm gonna. We're like about 5 minutes over. I just want to acknowledge that. If you do have a little bit more time to like continue, I'm gonna start wrapping us up. But that was gonna be like my next question is gonna be like how I want you know how can people get a hold of you? But there is another question in here, but I'm going to ask you now that we're drop some links. I'm going to put your links under here. I'll put a link
Okay.
where people can buy the book. But
Perfect.
I have a couple other personal questions to ask you before we wrap it up. So,
All right, good. So two different spaces to go. You can go to laurenpolly.com, and that is under construction right now. My old site is up there, a new one should be there pretty soon. That features more of the speaking engagements and self-care content. But there's a lot of tools up on the old site right now, and that's of January 12th, 2018. So if you're finding it in the future, you're good to go. And then modernmystichealer.com is kind of the online programs and being able to really dive in deeper into what is a healer and how is bringing outside of the box perspectives and mysticism, which is really just being open and being one of wondrous capacities. How can you bring that to the conversation of being a healer with your interactions? So that's there. The book is The Other Side of Bipolar. You can find that on Amazon, also in local bookstores. And Access Consciousness Publishing House is just picking it up. So I'm releasing a special edition for Access with a couple different changes that'll be up on their website and in their shops.
cool. Wow.
So
Awesome.
a lot of stuff in
I
the works.
mean, yeah, I have mine on the Kindle, so I'm like, I would be holding everybody's books up, but it's in my computer. It's a beautiful book. I definitely recommend everybody should definitely get a copy of it. So here's some other. I have two more questions for you. Okay.
Mhm.
One is, let's just say there's somebody out there that's watching this video, okay, and they might have been living within the definition of a mental illness, right? And all the while knowing that there's something more. They're in that space that they're like, I know there's something beyond this, right? What do you get would be that person's next step forward? And
Yeah. Yeah, there's so many. And I would say, depending on where they are, if you're currently struggling,
Mhm,
if you have suicidal thoughts, if you're really, really, really struggling, first step would be to a psychologist.
mhm,
You want to get your help, you want to find your feet, get your kind of bearings, so to speak.
mhm,
Then into that, start adding in additional practices. And you can look to whatever sounds fun and light. If you already have your feet underneath you, you're not overtly struggling, start there. Start at those wellness and alternative modalities and follow your awareness. Get online. Go look at some videos on YouTube. Access Consciousness is amazing. It has so many practical tools that you can use in the moment that are energetic based. That's the key. A lovely, lovely, lovely thing. Also, I found yoga and meditation. I'm a yoga instructor as well, to be super helpful for quieting my mind and getting in touch with my body. Just start to explore. If you get online, there's so much stuff. You can look at shamanism, Google the birth of a healer. There's a lot of information out there about that. Cool. We all have, like, I wrote the book the way I did kind of in my journey, where there wasn't like, I'm going here start to finish. Like there's only one path, because there's not one path. Right. Different paths. And that's kind of like, you're on the highway. It's like, what exit ramp do you want to take off for a little bit before you hop back on? If you can adopt that mindset and really just start exploring, and whatever makes you feel lighter, whatever gives you a sense of peace and calm, whatever kind of sparks an interest, that's your innate knowing. That's what you follow. And if you continue to move day by day in line with that, you can't go wrong. There's no way to fuck it up. You know what I mean? Yeah. Following your knowing. And that's exactly what I've done every step of the way. I just didn't have the awareness that I was doing that until now. That's so cool. That might be a challenge for you. Again, something to look at. How much have you already been doing that? Yeah. That you haven't acknowledged? You know, most of us are actually doing a lot of this stuff already. We're being it. Acknowledge it more, and then put more consciousness on it, more conscious intent, and keep going. Cool. Wow. That's awesome. Okay, so this is the personal question that I ask every person that does an interview for Energy Transformation Week. So I'm going to ask it. So imagine the younger you is watching the video, the one that was like, you know, back, I wouldn't go like the 14-year-old getting diagnosed or anything, but basically like before you started like making the choice and taking the path of like the healer, the facilitator, like the beginnings of taking that on, what would you say to her as the being that you are today to encourage her? I would tell her to trust herself and be willing to receive information from everywhere. But first and foremost, trust yourself. And there's absolutely no way that you can fuck this up and get it wrong. You're complete, you're whole, and it's just a matter of moving forward one step at a time. And those steps turn into huge leaps, way beyond what you can imagine. That, yeah. That's awesome. Because we know there's not going to be people that are in that position ever watching this, right? No, I'm just kidding. I know. And it was so funny. Like the very first radio spot that I did about the book when it came out, I wanted to go right into the possibilities, and I tapped into the energy of the people who turned in to listen. I'm like, they're not there. They're still struggling. They don't know anything else is possible, or they kind of do, but like they're not sure where to go. So sometimes you have to kind of like rewind the conversation a little bit, just so people can find just that one step that's tangible enough to actually go. And there's nothing wrong with that. Like, look for what you can actually, where you can see that little footpad where you can go, oh, I can put my foot here. Yeah. You don't have to see 5 steps ahead, but there is that one where you can go, oh, I'm going to stand here for right now. Yep. Yeah. Oh my God. Well, thank you so much, Lauren. This has been an awesome interview. I wasn't sure like how it was going to go, but we covered some really cool, like, I just look at it as 8 years ago, if I would have seen this video, it would have totally changed so much for myself. You know what I'm saying? That's just, so I'm grateful. And I know there's a lot of people in my network that I'm connected to that either have been diagnosed with bipolar, or their parents have, or someone that, we all are connected to other people, and who knows who's going to see this. So I am really grateful that you showed up and that you keep showing up. And
Yeah, thank you for being here. If there's anything that you'd like to say in closing, then you have the floor.
I would just say that hope does exist, and Gary Douglas, the founder of Access Consciousness, I sent him my book way back in the day and asked for an endorsement. And that's what he sent back is this book will give hope to those who feel lost in the dark. And I just think I went, wow, he kind of read the first chapter or two and got exactly what it was. And for me, if I can instill even just that little kindling of hope that there is something different and kind of that initiative just to step out and explore without the pressure of time or what it has to look like, then I've really done what I came here to do. So I just invite all of you to explore and follow your knowing and just keep that hope alive, whatever it takes to keep that hope and that kindling alive. Yeah. And Tara, thank you so much for leading this. This is just amazing. Yeah.
Thank you. Okay, everybody. Well, tomorrow I'm going to be interviewing Marissa, and she is a psychic and a medium, and she's the founder of Happy Ganesh. And we'll be talking all about what she does and how she interacts with the world of energetics. So tune in. That'll be at 12 p.m. Eastern. And again, thank you so much for tuning in and watching this today. And thank you. If you're watching in the future, you'll be able to get all of Lauren's links underneath this video somewhere. And again, Lauren, thank you so much for being here. I so appreciate it.
Thank you, Tara. Thank you guys for watching. Bye.
Bye-bye. Bye.